Okay, good evening everyone, and welcome back to Stonehouse in the UK for this Arboricultural Association webinar. My name's John Parker and I'm Technical Director at the Association, and I'll be your chair for this evening. The chat is open, so please select all panelists and attendees and let us know where you're watching from, and questions can be submitted using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Before we get started tonight, we've got an exciting prize draw to do. Woo! Those of you who joined us for Tree Health Week will know that throughout that event, we are offering our 2 new fungi books by Lynn Boddy, David Humphreys and Chris Wright for sale at a special price, with the added incentive of being placed into a prize draw, the winner of which would receive their copies of the book signed and free of charge. 214 people purchased the book bundle and have been entered into the draw. Now, much as I was looking forward to using this, the Arboricultural Association Bowl of Wonder, rather than cut up 214 pieces of paper and drawing one out, I thought I'd use technology to help me. So all of the entrants have been assigned a number between 1 and 214. And I'm going to share my screen now so you can all see me using my random number generator. So this has got disaster written all over it, but we're going to give it a go. Other random number generators are available, I'm sure, but we've gone for this one. So between 1 and 214, and then I've got a list of names here. This is so exciting, isn't it? I can see you're all excited. So we're going to press the button and see what number comes up. Woo, here we go. 71. Okay, well, that's on the first page. So I'm not sure if you can see this or not. I'll stop sharing now. You can all see that 71 is completely fair. And up here is Francesca Merli. Francesca Merli, I don't know if you can see that. There we go. But Francesca, you have won 2 books free, or the 2 books you bought, you'll get your money back, I guess. And you'll get those books as soon as they're ready to be dispatched, which will be early next year. So congratulations. That didn't go anywhere near as badly as I thought it would. I feel quite pleased. So if you haven't pre-ordered your copies yet, folks, then please don't worry. You can still do so at trees.org.uk. And of course, there you'll find all of our other amazing content about arboriculture and urban trees, including webinars, guidance documents, help and advice, online training courses, membership options, and so much more. It's all very marvelous. This evening, we're delighted to have been joined by some of our friends at the Woodland Trust, who will be speaking to you about the Tree Charter and giving you some ideas about how we can build a mass movement for people and trees. Now, we've built a bit of a mass movement of presenters, actually, because the number of people presenting has snowballed over the last few days, which is absolutely brilliant. And you'll therefore be hearing several short presentations, which will take about an hour in total. And then we'll be having a Q&A session at the end. So remember to submit your questions in the Q&A button. If it's for a particular panelist, then please say their name when you're asking the question. And when using the chat, please select all panelists and attendees. So that's more than enough from me. I would now like to introduce you to our first speaker, Zara Holden. Zara, it's over to you.
Hello, so I'm Zara. I'm from the Woodland Trust. I would like to be talking to you today about the Tree Charter programme at the Woodland Trust. We're going to talk a little bit about the Tree Charter as a document, and then we're going to talk about how we're using it at the Woodland Trust as a programme and how we're using it to work with community groups. So I'm just going to share my screen, get my presentation up. Okay, so I'm going to start by handing you over to Naomi Tilley, who's also from the Woodland Trust, to talk a bit about the launch of the Charter.
Hey, thanks, Zara. Yeah, so I'm Naomi Tilley. I lead our policy and engagement campaigns, and I'm going to give you a really brief introduction, really, to the Tree Charter and where it came from and what its purpose is. But before I do that, I just want to quickly acknowledge that in comparison to the technical side of tree management, tree care, and the science of trees, the Charter can feel a little bit abstract to start with. And I hope that today we're going to be able to share with you why it's so valuable and as a tangible tool that can be used to really make change for trees. We've got some really cool speakers lined up from community groups who will do a much better job than I can at showing you what the Tree Charter is delivering in practice today. But yeah, let's start with where it has come from. So Zara, if you come on to the next slide. So to tell the story of the Tree Charter, we have to go back a little way to 1217, which was when the sister document to the Magna Carta was signed, and it was called the Charter of the Forest. And this document was massively important at the time, and basically outlined the rights that free people had to the royal forests and the trees and woods within them. It outlined the rights that they had, because at that point in time, in 1217, trees were pretty fundamental to survival. They provided fuel, food, and the timber for shelter, and they were really important as a kind of a good that they needed all the time for survival. And this document was the first of its kind that outlined what those rights were. So fast forward to 2010, world has changed quite a lot by 2010, and many of you will remember, I'm sure, that the government proposed to sell off parts of the public forest estate, which resulted in a massive public outcry that I don't think the government was expecting. The public outcry eventually led to a U-turn, and a report was commissioned. And this report was chaired by Bishop James Jones, and his reflections after writing the report on the public forest was that, broadly speaking, we'd lost sight of the value of woods and trees. So that's a massive jump from 1217, when trees were really vital for survival, to 2010, and we'd lost sight of the value of woods and trees. And this is talking about society as a whole, rather than people like you and me that spend all day talking about trees and thinking about trees. So what happened next is the Woodland Trust, along with 70 other organisations and 300 community groups, started collecting stories. And these stories were from all walks of life, different parts of society, from within the tree sector and from outside it. And they basically, between these 60,000 stories, articulated the public's consciousness about trees and what was important to people, and personal stories from covering all different areas of how trees have impacted their lives. And from those stories, we distilled the Tree Charter, which is split into 10 principles, and they again it's an articulation of the importance and the value of trees in modern life. So moving forward from the Charter of the Forest is the modern importance of trees and our relationship with trees and our responsibilities towards them. It's massively broad. It covers everything, and some of them you will immediately feel that you can kind of relate to and more readily than others. It covers a huge amount of ground, and what its value is in a rallying cry. It brings together and articulates our shared understanding of the importance of trees. That in itself is a reasonably abstract concept for many, but what becomes tangible is when you turn that into action, because when the importance of trees becomes front of mind and we can understand that and bring it into the consciousness that is like really visible, and you kind of articulate it, that's when we see action. And one of the original objectives of the Tree Charter was to drive policy change. So it is all about creating action, and just the starting point was this articulation of what trees mean for everyday people. That's a very short introduction. I'll hand over to what is actually happening, what that action is. Zara.
Thank you, Naomi. Okay, so as Naomi said, you've got the 10 different principles of the Tree Charter. So in 2017, we sort of started at this point, and then we thought, what else can we do with these principles, and how can we start enacting them in our society? So this is where lovely people get involved. We started working with charter branches. So charter branches are groups of people or organisations that are interested in woods and trees and interested in making an impact in their community. So we've got local councils, student groups, and community groups, broadly speaking, that have all sort of joined up to create 650 charter branches across the UK. This particular example are called Newent in Bloom, and they're a community group down in Newent, and this is an example of them enacting on the planting principle around Newent Lake. They actually worked with Newent Council on this, Newent Town Council. who are also a charter branch. But the one thing that I really want to point out from this photo is the poster. So you can see on the poster that they're really promoting the benefits of trees. So the whole sort of ideology behind charter branches is to enact the principles in their local areas, but also, again, thinking about building a mass movement of people for woods and trees. It's about spreading the word in these local communities across the UK. And so they held this planting event, but they also use it as an opportunity to talk about the tree charter in new ways. And hopefully you'll see that there's countless examples of that happening when we talk to our charter branches later on. So we said there's student groups, local councils and community groups. So I'm going to talk about the value of each of those sort of independently, because they do quite different things. To start with, we work with a group called Students for Trees, and that's about 15 different students working in different universities across the UK. And they've come together to form this group, and they're promoting the tree charter principle and getting student organisations and student societies to sign up to the tree charter across the UK. We've got about 48 different student societies now that have become charter branches. We think this is really valuable because it creates bottom-up organisational change across those universities. So universities have a lot of land, university campuses will have woods and trees, and they can make a lot of impact there. But I think it's really quite valuable as well because they're working in urban areas a lot of the time. So obviously a lot of universities are in city centres, and so rather than just focusing on the planting and protecting principles of the tree charter, they'll also hold events to talk about the tree sector, promoting jobs to students. They'll also talk about, you know, pest and disease in trees and all sorts of different issues around the tree charter and spread the word in that way. Okay, so local councils, we often find that local councils are at the heart of their community. They're often the ones that are most connected to different businesses, voluntary groups, schools and more. So they can play a really valuable role in sort of bringing these groups together to work on the tree charter, like we saw with Newent in Bloom earlier, working with Newent Town Council. They also have access to a lot of land. So if you have urban charter branches in urban areas, they can work with their local councils to have planting events and protect trees in rural areas too. But one of maybe the most important things is that they're in charge of neighbourhood planning. So we've created a toolkit for our local councils so they can implement tree strategies and make them a really crucial part of their neighbourhood plans. And then I say community groups really vaguely because we have such a variety of different types of groups that come into this kind of final category. So we'll have tree wardens groups, friends of groups, and artistic groups as well, more creative groups. And we find that these groups are the ones that have a lot of expertise and knowledge of their local trees, and we'll be able to talk all day about the trees in their community. I wanted to go through a few examples of what these community groups have been up to. So if you look on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a big poster saying the terrific Treevilles. So we had a charter branch down in Bristol create a play around woods and trees, and they were targeting the play to schools and thinking about how can we sort of get children more engaged with all of the benefits around the tree charter. So they created this 20-minute play, and it's a musical. It's got lots of amazing musical numbers in it, which I recommend you go and check out. And they want to tour it around schools in the UK during lockdown, because obviously they weren't able to do that. They created a recorded version with some West End actors as well. And again, it's like thinking about how we can spread the message of woods and trees and the messages of the tree charter principles, you know, in different ways. So below that, you have a group called the Arbo Realists, and this is 50 different artists who all do paintings around woods and trees. There's one in the corner, you can see lovely, bright, colourful paintings, and they're all super different. Some of them could be dark, and you know, it really attracts different people within the arts world. They'll hold these exhibitions, and then that's a whole new audience of people who might be really interested in painting and artwork but had never considered being interested in woods and trees, and it's bringing those worlds together. So next to that, you have a band called Fraser and the Tuts, and they are a musical band. They created a song called The World is Run by Trees. Again, recommend you check it out. It's really catchy. They've got it on Spotify too. And you can see the artwork on the CD covers, and all of the proceeds go to the Woodland Trust. And then above that, you have something actually really special. So last year, all of the charter branches in Sheffield came together and each made a pledge. So it's too small to read, but the pledges are really around, planting more trees, protecting different sites, spreading the messages of the tree charter, tackling pests and diseases. And I think the really special thing about this is that all of these community groups have all got an interest in woods and trees, and the tree charter gave them an opportunity to come together and work together on these issues. Okay, so how are we supporting this movement? So we offer community tree packs for free for all of our charter branches. We also have small grants available. We can offer knowledge and advice on tree management. We give a monthly newsletter with opportunities, events and Woodland Trust campaigns. So if they don't know what to do, we've always got something at hand. We can give support at events, talks and webinars. But I'd say one of the most beneficial things that we can do, and perhaps maybe the simplest, is connecting them with other charter branches in their area. So I was saying earlier about how it will be like your tree wardens, your friends of group that have all this local knowledge and this tree expertise in that area. And it's about having that networking capacity so that they can work together and expand that support area in their region. So I really recommend that you check out our Tree Charter website. If you go on the Get Involved page, and we can send you a link to this later, you'll find the Tree Charter map. So really, we want to promote more and more people working with our charter branches. You have all of these community groups and these local councils who are really interested in supporting the Tree Charter principles and making a difference in their local area. You can find them all on the map, so you can see who is closest by to you. And all of these pins, if you click on them, they should come up with some contact details, so it's really easy to find them. So the red pins represent local councils, the blue pins represent student councils, and I promise there's a lot more green pins than you can see on here, but they represent the community groups. They're just hidden because there's been so many over time. Okay, and then the last thing I really want to talk to you about is Tree Charter Day. So every year we have Tree Charter Day, National Tree Charter Day, and it's on the last Saturday of National Tree Week. So this year it will be on the 28th of November. We really got thinking, what can we do during lockdown to celebrate woods and trees in the UK and to celebrate the Tree Charter, when we can't do these face-to-face events anymore. So we decided to host a Tree Charter festival. So this will be on the 28th of November, coming up next month. We'll have live talks throughout the day on the Major Oak stage. We'll have all of the creative content I talked about earlier and more in the fun fair, and all of the arborealist paintwork can be found in the gallery. We'll have the Big Climate Fight Back, how you can take part in that campaign, and then a meet and greet area by region in the woods. So it should be really fun, something a little different that we thought we'd try out. Oh, also worth noting that John will be taking part in a talk on urban trees in the Major Oak stage as well. So I really hope to see you there. I look forward to hearing all of your questions about the Tree Charter. I feel like we've talked a lot about the Tree Charter in principle and sort of what the idea behind the Tree Charter is. So it'd be really good to talk to our charter branches now about how we're sort of using the Tree Charter in practice and how they're using it in their local communities. Thank you.
Thanks very much to Zara, and thank you, Naomi. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me to do a little talk at your event as well. I'm looking forward to it. That's a little plug for me there. That's nice. Thanks. Right. Okay. So we've got plenty of questions coming in, which is great. So keep your questions coming. Lots of good stuff going on in the chat as ever. Lots of you, though, still selecting just all panelists when you're making your comment instead of all panelists and attendees, which means that only we can see it and not everyone else can see where you're from. But we have definitely got a very good international spread tonight, which is always very exciting. So keep it coming. Next up, I will hand over to Caroline. Caroline, welcome, please. It's all yours.
Oh, thanks, John, and thanks for inviting me. I'm really pleased to be part of this event tonight. It's brilliant, and really nice to see that there's so many charter branches on your map now, Zara. The last time I looked, there weren't quite so many of that, but there's so many interesting things that people are doing in connection to the Woodland Trust and the Tree Charter. So I'm an artist, and I make work that has connections to ecology and nature and science. And I'm just going to share my screen now to take you through a few slides that tell you a little bit more about what I'm doing in connection to the Tree Charter. So bear with me while I just get my slides up. Okay, so as I said, I use a lot of things in connection to kind of science and nature in my work. I make installations and I work with sound. I make public art sculptures. Often these are interactive, and I, as well as working in galleries and making performances as well. So my work is interdisciplinary and goes right across quite a broad spectrum. Really, to sort of go back to the beginning of my story, and my connection with the Tree Charter and the Woodland Trust, I need to talk about this work called The Frequency of Trees, which is part of the outdoor collection at Yorkshire Sculpture Park. And it's one of the first projects that I made in connection with trees. And I was really interested in trying to collect data from trees, and to see what I could do artistically with this data. So I was interested when I walked through the trees in the movement and the repeated rhythms of the movement of the branches and the leaves. And I wondered if I could borrow some kind of processes from science or technology to try and map out these frequencies or rhythms. So I attempted a few different ways of working out the frequencies or the movements of trees. And at that time I was looking at scientific instruments, and I was particularly interested in the tuning fork and how you can actually see sound. So tuning forks make sound visible in a small way. So I took a lot of readings from 4 separate trees at Yorkshire Sculpture Park, and I spent some time talking to mathematicians and scientists and physicists, and I eventually found out a few different ways of working out the frequency of trees. And I ended up making this sculpture, which is interactive, and people can play the tuning forks and hopefully have discussions about the movement in trees in nature. And so each tree at Yorkshire Sculpture Park gave me 3 readings. So there are 12 tuning forks that are part of that sculpture. That led me to think a little bit more about trees, and the conversations that I had with people in the park, and the interesting kind of connections that people have and personal stories that they have with trees made me look a little bit deeper into the significance of trees. And I started the next phase of my research. So here are some images of significant trees, most of which are in England. You have the major oak, which is really close to us in Nottingham. I'm based in Nottingham. And to top right, you have the original Bramley apple tree, which is in Southall. Below that, I was lucky enough to go to Australia last year, and that is an original native tree of Australia. It's called the bunya pine. And on the other side of the screen, you have Newton's apple tree in Woolsthorpe, and the Parliament tree, which is on the edge of Sherwood Forest. So I began scanning these trees using a laser scanner and applying the same kind of approach to which I kind of worked out the frequencies of the 4 trees at Yorkshire Sculpture Park. And I was able to gather more data from each tree. Now from that, and a lot more recently, I've been able to kind of work with Loughborough Bell Foundry, and we've managed to cast a handbell in connection to that very first Bramley apple tree in Southall. And it's tuned to the frequency of 500 hertz. And that frequency plays when the temperature is at 21 degrees. And if the temperature changes, then so too does the frequency of the bell. And I found that interesting in connection to climate change. I was also thinking about bells and bells as warning signs. And the bell became more prominent in my thinking and my research in connection with trees. And just to return again to the story of how I became connected to the Woodland Trust, I was invited to be part of a special supper with Common Ground at Yorkshire Sculpture Park. And that is where I met Kay Brennan from the Woodland Trust, who said that the work that I was doing, she said, was very tree charter. She said it's very tree charter to be looking at the trees in the way that you are. So we established a connection, and she gave me a sapling from the Woodland Trust, which I took with me. And then I was involved in this event at Nottingham Contemporary, which was all about the future and climate change. And some of my friends and colleagues were speaking at this event. And I was able to pass on that Woodland Trust sapling to this lovely couple who were just moving in together, and they took the sapling and planted it in their garden, and I'm in contact with them. And I thought this was rather lovely. This was a really nice thing that I could do, and that led me to find out a little bit more about the Woodland Trust and the Tree Charter. And then I established my own tree charter, which is called Significant Trees. And I plan to continue working with communities and schools and people, and to use my bells to play a part of ceremonies and perhaps rituals, and to really spread the word about the Tree Charter and what it's trying to do, and just generally give people a place to discuss, or just start up conversations about what trees mean to people and places. So as part of Tree Charter Day this year in Nottingham, the council have agreed to sign the Tree Charter, to sign a pledge to the Charter during a ceremony which I'm hosting with the Tree Charter bell ringing out. So I'm working with a performance art, an artist who creates costumes, and he's going to become the first tree crier, and he's going to ring the Bramley apple tree bell, and we're going to ring out the first charter tree cry. So it's a kind of looking back to town criers, but with a little bit of a twist. I've also been lucky enough to gather some funds for this very special bell, which is the next kind of phase in my research and practice. And these are some drawings of the Tree Charter bell. And a few weeks ago, the tree charter bell was dug out from the sand at Loughborough Bell Foundry. And this is what it looks like. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm very, very excited about it. And this tree charter bell will be part of the first ceremony at the end of November on Tree Charter Day. So we're really looking forward to just this test, really. Obviously, we can't have a big crowd like I was imagining for this event, but we will have 6 of us who will be socially distanced, and we will be performing this kind of ceremony where the council signs a pledge to the tree charter. Also, during this day, we're going to plant 104 tree saplings, and these will be planted in an urban area, an area in the city centre called Radford, and it's a very built up area, but there are these green spaces you can see on the map there, and I've worked with the council to work out where we're going to plant these 104 trees. And hopefully along the way we'll be wheeling the ceremonial bell with us, and hopefully we will talk to people and have conversations about trees. Whenever I work and I take out, you know, big bits of kit like the laser scanner, I always become involved in conversations with passers-by, and this is one of the great things about my work. I get to meet a lot of people and I get to hear a lot of stories, and so by wheeling this bell through the streets, we will be raising attention to what the Woodland Trust are doing, and we will be in conversation with people about trees. And hopefully over the next few years, I don't know how long, as long as it lasts, maybe 10 years, maybe longer, we will keep planting trees every year and keep having these conversations. And the hope really is to find out what trees mean to people, to collect the stories. I have a sound recorder and I collect stories, and really just to get people involved and people caring for our planet, our trees, and just being more connected to the natural world. So that's it from me. It's been nice to be part of this conversation today, and I'll hand back over to John.
Great stuff. Thank you, Caroline. Lots of people getting very excited by the bell and associated music in the chat. Some of you are trying to say things in the chat that I think you're trying to say to other people in the chat, but the other people in the chat aren't seeing what you're saying in the chat because you're only saying it to the panelists. So I'm going to get this tattooed on my forehead. Put your message to all panelists and attendees, and then everyone will be able to see. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Caroline. That was absolutely great. There's questions coming in for all of you, so we'll deal with those at the end. But next up, it's my very great pleasure to welcome Roger. Please, Roger, if you want to unmute, and over to you.
My name's Roger Parkinson. I'm in Wakefield in West Yorkshire. It's a very wet night. It's nice to be inside talking about trees and enjoying all the great things that's happening with trees, particularly through the tree charter. What I want to do is to show you some of the things we've been doing in Wakefield since 2007 and connecting lots of people with trees and the tree projects that we do. So I'm just going to share the screen. Just bear with me a second. So we're a tree wardens group in Wakefield. We started in 2007, and it came together from a thing called the Tree Council that's based in London, where there's tree wardens groups all over the country. And the great thing is it links you up with your local council tree officers. And we were really lucky in Wakefield that the tree officer and the tree manager at that time was Bill Lavery, and Bill is retired now, but fantastic enthusiast for trees and trying to get things done and engage people with trees. And when he heard that we were starting a group, he was more than willing to let us get involved. Now that work is monitored and supervised by the tree officer for the district, which covers Wakefield, Pontefract and Castleford, and also the forestry manager, John Richards, who's part of what we call Wakefield Street Scene Department, which looks after all the green spaces. Now, very early on, Bill said, look, in the early 1980s, we planted a large collection of trees as a bank of trees we could dip into, but we have lots of trees have grown. We want to create an arboretum, this tree collection from trees all over the world. And I remember shuddering when he said that, because it was a major project. It's quite a big site. And the photograph you can see here is after the first year or so, the trees, we marked up all the sick, dead and dying trees on the site so that the forestry team could come in then and take those out, create some gaps. We applied for a grant from the lottery scheme in the UK, which was promptly turned down because they said we have no experience in the things that we're doing, so we couldn't have any money. But in a way, that was the best thing that could have happened, because as we started the project, people came past and were talking and asking us what we were doing. And an old chap came past one day and he said, well, when we create some gaps, we are going to add some more trees to the collection. He said, oh, I'd love to sponsor a tree if I could, because I've recently lost my wife and we walk here every day. Could I have a tree in the collection? And that's how it started. So the funds we didn't need, over the last 10 years, we've collected and raised enough money to fund the entire project. We now have 113 trees in the collection as a whole. Some are trees going back to the original planting, as you can see the bigger ones behind from 1984, and then more smaller ones which are the additions to the collection. Now, where we try to engage everybody in this project, you can see a lady in a white hat off to the left of the screen there, is the chief exec for an organisation called Sight Aid, which tries to engage people with obviously sight issues, get them outdoors, engaging with nature, finding out things in the wider world. And of course, an arboretum is ideal for that. The sensory aspect of the bark, the leaves, the scent as you're walking through the arboretum is ideal. I make these benches, and we put 3 of these benches on the site. The timber is larch, which is felled, planted in the 1940s and 50s to be pit props for the coal mining industry. We used to be a heavy industry area, and of course, since all that's faded away, we've been able to get greener, get more things back into our district and return it to nature. I've tried to put on in braille there as well underneath. Hopefully it says New Milledam Arboretum. And people have sponsored not just the trees, but the benches, bird boxes. Hi, can you hear me okay? Yeah. I can't change slides. Right. Now the slides, the post that you can see here, originally we put some identification signs in the Arboretum. They lasted about 9 years. They were made out of wood and on 3-inch square wooden posts. But over time they deteriorated. So we replaced them again with using these larch posts and putting these signs on there. And it's about people finding out what these trees are. And the nice thing about it is we were up there on Friday, having a walk through. The young family were up there collecting the autumn leaves, the different shapes, the different colours to take them home. But Mum was taking the kids up to each sign to explain what this tree was. And some people have used this site to come and decide, well, what tree do I want for my garden? What tree do I want for the area that we've got? What would be suitable? What would look nice? In this area, you can see there's lots of bird boxes behind, and as a group as well, we need to raise funds. So we probably made over the years probably about 500 bird boxes of different sizes, about 16 owl boxes, hedgehog boxes, bat boxes, all kinds of things like that to raise money for the projects that we do. And we've even done a project with the city centre businesses in Wakefield. They wanted to tidy up the city, and they said, look, these rubbish bins don't look very nice. I said, well, we'll paint those. So we got them down to the workshop, down to this site you can see on the picture, which is the greenhouses in the local park, cleaned them out, painted them, and that raised £2,400, which we were able to put into tree stock, which we spent on projects last winter. And here are the posts going in front of the trees and the arboretum. Now also, because I'm a volunteer speaker for the Woodland Trust and a thing called a Woodland Creation Champion, where we give advice to groups who want to plant trees and perhaps haven't done it before, I get to various places. And this is a school at Sheffield. This is Ecclesfield High School. And the chap who's the school manager there, Sean, had a brilliant idea where he wanted each new starter at the school to plant a tree, so they were then connected with the school straight away, and it made them feel welcome. So we had a look at the site, we looked at where the hedgerow could go, and this picture here is the second year when we were putting the... Now this picture here was used, and Sean's in the middle there pushing the wheelbarrow. They have 11 classes of year 7 students who took part in this. So that's about 30 odd kids in each class. So we're talking about a lot of children who are learning about trees. As they come out, I'll talk to them about the trees, what the benefits will be, and then we get them planted. This picture appeared in the Times Educational Supplement last year, and I was able to send it through to Sean to say that it was there, because it demonstrates for their school that they are engaging with nature, trying to do positive things like this and improve their local environment. So when the school inspectors come in Ofsted, they can see what a great job they're doing in their local community. Now this photograph is a little place called Normanton near Wakefield, and in the distance you see a line of trees off to the right. That's the M62 motorway, and the field behind where we're standing, I'm in the yellow coat on the left. The part of the forestry team there, he's got the furry hat in the middle, 2 councillors are there and the teacher. But when we do a project, I always approach the nearest schools and say, look, we're doing this, would you like to be involved? And they usually jump all over it, they're really enthusiastic. So I'll do a piece in their school assembly or to classes, whatever the head teacher wants, about the benefits of trees and what we're going to be doing and why we're doing it. And then they come along and plant it perhaps a few weeks later. And then they can watch that site grow because they live locally. It's theirs, they can enjoy it. And this is another site the same winter, a site called Shaw Cross. And this site was particularly needed tree because underneath part of it was an old refuse tip which had been covered over, and we talked to the engineers from the council and said, look, is it okay to put some trees on it? Some very unnice water, not very nice water, was coming out the bottom of the site. We're at the top here where you can see this picture, but we thought, well, for about 13,000 trees on this site. I spoke to the local schools again. And one particular school, this school is Horbury Junior School near Wakefield, and the head teacher was so enthusiastic about this. They're about 2 miles away from the site. They use their school minibus, which I think only carries 17, but a dozen or so at a time. They sent every one of the children, and I think there was about 360 children came up to that site over the period of about a week. We were overlooking the recycling centre. We could talk about recycling. We could talk about what was under our feet, talk about the sustainability of what we were doing, how we were making it better, and helping to reduce flooding further down. And the River Calder is just down at the bottom of the hill. So here's the kids getting the spades and getting out there and getting some trees planted. It's really in a built-up area, this. You can't tell from this picture, but we're in a fairly built-up area here in West Yorkshire, with Wakefield probably about a mile or 2 away, Dewsbury in the other direction, and Batley. And it was a great location to do that. Now the picture on the right here, when obviously the weekdays we can get the school kids up there. During the weekends, we put it open to the general public to come and plant trees. And this lady's here with her son. We try and make things a bit special by getting Father Christmas to come to site, so they get a Christmas present of something sustainably sourced, and they're planting a tree. But I always ask people, why have you come? What brings you to plant a tree? And this lady said that in the 1980s, they'd planted a tree at Batley with a celebrity then, which was on television, and then they saw the tree grow, and they wanted to have their children to have that same experience. And the advantage with the charter information and the picture on the left, as people are leaving the project and they've planted some trees, I can talk to them. Have they enjoyed it? Have they had a nice time? Do they want to do it again? Give them information about British native trees and how they can get involved. Now, some schools get in touch and they haven't got a woodland nearby, and some of them haven't got a park that's particularly close. And this is a school near the city of Wakefield. They've got a few trees in the corner of the school field. So on this one, Wakefield Tree Wardens, we funded to put a canopy and create an outdoor learning space for the children, a bit like a forest school area. With the same slices of wood, I did these within their own school environment. That was put in towards the end of summer last year, and I know that this year it's had a great deal of use while the kids have been back at school during the current situation. And on one corner of the site, we put a post in there, the tree charter wording is on there. And then on the other side, it gives the dates for the charters, the kids can think. Okay, right, so this particular scene here, you can see we've got the charter post, the charters on the back of it. We use the old Arboretum signs, which you can see one on the bottom left of that picture, to create features around that area, using about 50 different tree signs, tree names, to get the kids reading those names and learning about those names, and putting a hedgerow off to the back left of that particular site. You can see a little tree there inside some posts, a little oak tree. That was to remember one of the children who had sadly lost a fight with illness, and his classmates planted the little oak tree there. Yeah, next slide, Zara, thank you. And this is how those trees were grown, and the tree was actually in this batch. So growing in containers like this, or the Tetra Pak containers that you get your orange juice in. Plant them about October. As soon as they're fresh, get some nice solid ones, put them in a bucket of water. If they sink to the bottom of the water, then they're nice solid acorns, and we get these planted in the containers. When we're ready to plant, perhaps a year or so later, just cut the bottle open and lift the whole thing out and plant it. Okay, Zara? And this is that school group growing those trees. And there's a sample of the tree there on the table that's a year or so old. So that's Oscar the oak tree. So the kids can see what they're building towards by planting their acorn, because kids usually want things very quickly and instantly, don't they? But this takes time. So I send them pictures as things are growing and things like that. We've actually created some of these nurseries actually in school gardens as well. Next picture, thanks, Sarah. Next slide, please. That's it, thank you. Now another project we started in 2014 was, I was approached by councillors from Featherstone Town Council who wanted to plant a tree as part of the centenary of World War I. And so they came to see us in the July, and we wanted to start the planting in November. We got a Woodland Trust free tree pack, and this field was completely empty. You can see the picture as it is now. But it was completely empty. The forestry team helped to prepare the site, and then we made some wooden markers initially to remember the 353 men who didn't return to Featherstone at the end of World War I. Set those out, dealt with 4 schools locally, 4 junior schools, and year 5 and 6 researched the men, and then on the 11th of the 11th, starting that day, they came to plant a tree behind each marker, behind the name of the man they had been researching. That research is now in the local library. After a couple of years, the community embraced it so much, this project, they said, look, we want to make these posts permanent. These are the permanent posts that went in a couple of years later. Next slide, please, Sarah. And the Warhorse arrived in March 2018. They managed to get a grant to do a major art piece on this corner, because the main road is just behind where the photographer is here, just off to the left. And all the markers are set out there. And this is on the 11th of the 11th, 2018, to mark the end of World War I. And you can see what a fantastic thing the Warhorse is. And that's to remember all the workhorses that came from this area, the farm horses and the colliery horses that went off to war and didn't return. Next one, please, Anne. We also have an event each year we support, and it's called the Interfaith Tree Planting, and it's usually around the same time as National Tree Week. Is Interfaith Week. So there's a group actually in the cathedral at Wakefield that get together, and we plan this. We focus on the tree aspect of it. And this year on the 10th of November would have been the 10th annual tree planting, where different faiths come together to plant this tree. The Mayor of Wakefield comes as well. He elects a day out and comes to help to plant the tree, the children from the local schools. Next one, please. And then we get together to get this tree planted. We get about several different faiths there, and what we do afterwards, we all go down to the community centre, the church hall, have a cup of tea and a piece of cake, but it's a chance for a member from each faith to stand up to say how trees are important in their faith. And we've learned a great deal from this. There is a community to find out what that's like. And then it's just a matter of getting out and enjoying trees. This is year 6 from a local school. The teacher contacted me and said, look, the kids are bouncing off the walls. They've just done their exams. Can we get out for a walk in the countryside? Which we did. And on the way back in the city park, they had the photograph taken in there. And this is what the future is all about. This is why we do it. We want the kids to have a better future, a greener future by planting lots more trees. Thank you very much.
Roger, that was brilliant. Very, very inspirational stuff, and expertly handling technical problems. So well done. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, they're loving you, Roger. They're loving you in the chat. Don't read it or it'll go to your head. So, right now, next up, what an act to follow, but I feel confident we can, especially as we've got some extra help coming, I can see. So next up is Anna and Rachel doing a joint presentation with support, as you'll be able to see in just a minute. So I will hand over to Anna and Rachel, and whichever one of you is gonna make a start. Over to you. Thanks.
Hey, thanks, John. I'm Anna, and I'm joined here by my eldest daughter, Mabel. I have 2 other children, and it's currently bedtime in our house, so if you hear more noise in the background, that's why. I have Mabel here because I'd like her to start just by sharing her thoughts on what trees and being out in woodland means to her. Do you want to tell them?
Being in like the woodland makes me feel free, energized, and very free, and it makes me feel like I'm basically in a massive space full of all the things I love. And I like being in there because of the fresh air. Countryside's got to be my favourite place to be.
And so kids plant trees, as it kind of says on the tin. I'm going to share my screen in a slideshow with you, and we'll just tell you a little bit more about what we've been doing so far, and where we're hoping to go. It'll just be a minute. So hopefully you can see that. We set up Kids Plant Trees just at the beginning of this year. It was myself and a group of other parents and activists. And basically we were just really eager to do something tactical and practical, and something really hands-on to help the planet, but to encourage little ones to connect with nature. So we've all got little children and we just wanted to do something. So we started with planting projects. So we launched in January, and we managed to have 5 family events before lockdown kicked in. And in those 5 events, we managed to get over 3,000 trees in the ground alongside Sheffield City Council. We were amazed at how many families and children came along. So across the events, we had over 250 children and families join us. So there's a clear appetite for families and children in Sheffield to do something and to get out there and feel like they're doing their bit as well. We have more events planned from November. Obviously, it's all fingers crossed, depending how things go. We're currently in tier 3. So one of our events was Manor Playing Fields. This was a large unkempt site in the manor, and it was assessed by the council's forestry team. So they wanted to, they came, they looked at the site like they do with any site that we're going to plant on, and they wanted planting to avoid flooding, and they wanted to make this large space more enjoyable for the community. So we held 2 events here, and like I said, like you see from the pictures, we had hundreds turn up across the 2 events. We had a really big scouts group come to the second event, which was great, involving the local community, and we planted over, I think, 1,400 trees at this site across those 2 events. Now, we've had a lot of problems at that site with vandalism, so unfortunately a lot of the trees will need to be replanted, but we're hopeful that we can make this a lovely space for in the future for the local area. We promoted this event across social media to the local area, because we felt that if more people could come from the local vicinity, then the hope is that they will be invested in that space and they will help nurture it and look after it. So our thoughts after the vandalism is that perhaps that needs an education campaign in that area. So that is, you know, something we're planning to do in the future alongside the council. So this event were at Bowl Hills Recreational Ground in Crooks, Sheffield, was, I think, 5 days before lockdown. And as you can see, it didn't hold anybody back. And we had hundreds turn up, lots of families, and they all just got stuck in and got lots of trees in the ground. It was quite a small space, and we were planting 2 large copse on each side with a path down the middle. So I think we managed to plant over 500-600 trees there. So all the trees we got in the ground, the lockdown happened, and then it was an unusually hot spring. And because the council forestry team were on lockdown as well, they couldn't get out to water it. We couldn't get out to water them. So it meant that quite a lot of the trees didn't thrive. We also had a problem with an overeager mower. So they unfortunately mowed over quite a few of the trees. So again, this site needs beating up, but that is very much on our agenda in the next few months for the next tree season. And we hope to get that space back up and running. We had on similar times, we had planting at a primary school. We've approached primary schools across Sheffield. It's our target age group. And Sharrow Primary School planted a series of trees along their fencing, and they're thriving. They're doing really well. And we also helped a new nursery, Growing Wild Nursery in Barnsley. They are going to plant a tree for every child, similar to Roger was saying with Ecclesfield School. They're going to plant a tree for every child that comes to that nursery. So as part of, we got lots of trees, free trees from the Woodland Trust, and as part of that quota we sent quite a few to the Barnsley nursery, and they are planting, and we have more trees coming soon from the Woodland Trust, and we will be sending more to them in November. So we became a tree charter group pretty quickly after setting up, because there were so many things that resonated with us, and you know, we saw the little mention and the quote from Harriet Fraser, and a little bit of it was a wood begins with one little seed. And from our perspective, if you think about one little hand and that getting muddy and planting that seed, and if we can get hundreds of little hands doing that, just imagine what we can achieve. So we want to get them involved really young, so that we can hopefully create a connection that lasts a lifetime. Part of our activism was very much based on cleaner air for our children, and it was also based on no use of pesticide, especially around playgrounds. So the tree charter felt very, it resonated with us, and it sat really alongside where we were trying to, where we're trying to go with Kids Plant Trees. So the other little element from the tree charter group was how we're trying to get the community, local communities involved in the planting projects, local planting projects. So if we can get people who live in the area planting in the area with their children, then we want to see the children going back to those trees and overseeing them and nurturing them, becoming tree guardians. So that's where we've got to at the moment. We really hope for more planting projects as of November. And our other big aim, because we've been connecting with a lot of schools in Sheffield, is to get into schools in Sheffield. But because we can't do that physically at the moment, we're going to have to move digitally, or we're going to have to do it virtually. So that again is part of a tree charter element that really resonates with us, was that the health benefits of trees should be part of the curriculum, and Kids Plant Trees want to put it there. And on that note, I'm going to pass you over to Rachel. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. So there's quite a famous quote by David Attenborough that many people have probably already heard, but it is that no one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they have never experienced. And that's definitely something that resonated with me. And with Kids Plant Trees, the importance of not just teaching kids about the importance of trees whilst they're sat in a classroom, but enabling them to get out there and actually be with trees and in woodlands and all sorts of different environments filled with nature, basically. Now, it's not as easy as we've thought. So there's been a lot of research that's been done about the importance of enabling kids to be within nature, and particularly by the RSPB, and they found that really only 1 in 5 children have a connection to nature, and that's more than halved within just one lifetime, within one generation. And they also say that the critical age of influence for children is before the age of 12. So if a child hasn't experienced a connection with nature before the age of 12, they are unlikely to campaign and protect nature as an adult, basically. And the Tree Charter didn't inspire me to start protecting and working towards improving my local natural environments. It was basically my experience as a child of playing in woodlands and wild spaces. And also the sad realization that my children are not going to have that same experience. So what we also want to do is, basically also realizing that within the UK, we're only 13% of the UK is woodland cover. The rest of it is probably housing and farming. But this also means that for the majority of children, their access to woodland, they rely on an adult that can drive and take them to the woodland. So actually, the reality of it is that playing in woodland is just inaccessible for the majority of children in the UK. The outdoor spaces that children do have access to is parks and also their school playgrounds. So Anna's already just explained to you about what we've been trying to do within parks, but then I'm going to start to talk about what we're hoping to do within school playgrounds. So using the words of David Attenborough as our mantra, we're hoping to change the uninspiring school playing fields and concrete playgrounds into inspiring outdoor classrooms and wildlife gardens. So we want to think about having trees and nature gardens in purpose-built planters within concrete playgrounds. So we don't want kids to have to play within just a grey, uninspiring concrete space anymore. We want to think about green walls instead of railings, and playing fields with areas designated for long grasses and wildflowers. And then trees planted to form the architecture of an outdoor living classroom. So imagine circles of trees with kids sat in the middle of them and having lessons outdoors instead of indoors constantly. We think we'll be able to achieve this through collaborative working with other organisations. And I think we really want to stress that one thing that really helped Kids Plant Trees get off the ground is working with our community tree planters in Sheffield City Council. And that partnership is just enabling us to flourish really, and definitely to access more areas than we would have been able to do on our own. We've already started to discover that, of course, there are going to be many hurdles to achieving this dream. And frustratingly, it's the red tape surrounding grounds maintenance contracts that appears to be one of the main ones. But we enjoy a challenge, so we're not going to shy away from it. I also wanted to put out there maybe like an idea about what everybody can do to help children have a different experience of trees and nature in their local areas. And I think that would be to wake up tomorrow and start to look at your town or your city through the eyes of a small child that's been born today, and look at your parks, your playgrounds, and those little unused spaces in streets and neighbourhoods, because that is their accessible outdoor space. And chances are there's hardly any trees in it, let alone woodland. Parks tend to be open green spaces. The countryside that we can see from where we are in Sheffield is open green fields. Trees are very sparse, and we are one of the greenest cities in Europe with the most tree coverage. And it's still hard for my children to play within woodland. So once you've assessed your outdoor space, then I would suggest that you start to put your adult head on again, and then start working with organisations to try and break down the barriers and cut up the red tape that stands in the way of our children connecting with something that should be their birthright, but unfortunately isn't. We would like to see kids planting trees in every city so that the future generations have the chance to appreciate and enjoy them. And that's really what kind of just inspires me every day, even though I'm sleep deprived and busy with 2 kids, to keep trying to make it more accessible for my children to connect with nature in a world that is increasingly hard for them to do so. And that's it. So hopefully we'll achieve it.
Thank you very much, Anna, Rachel, and of course, Mabel. Brilliant stuff. I think you've got a future in chairing AA webinars, Mabel, if you like. You're a natural. Okay, we have got lots and lots of questions. We've got lots and lots of chat, lots and lots of comments. We're just going to have to sort of jump around all over the place, I think, because there's all sorts of stuff here. So we'll start off with a couple of people who have mentioned the Tree Council, another great organisation who the Arb Association is very pleased to work with. And Elizabeth and somebody else, who I'm sure I'll see in a minute, but has asked, how are the charter branches different from the Tree Council's Tree Warden project? Zara and Naomi, perhaps that's one for you to open up with.
Yeah, so they're different in that a lot of charter branches are local councils, a lot of charter branches are also student groups, but we also have some tree wardens groups becoming charter branches too. So I think the main difference is that we are spreading the messages of the tree charter principles, which can be really, really varied. Whereas the tree wardens groups, you know, amazing groups, and they really know what they're doing. They will focus a lot on sort of woodland working, tree management, looking after the woods. What we're doing is slightly broader in trying to, again, like build this mass movement of people for woods and trees and spreading the words of the tree charter principles. So it's different in that if you sign up to support the tree charter and become a charter branch, it's all about trying to spread those messages as much as it is about actively enabling those principles in practice. So not all of the principles are around sort of planting and protection. They can also be around mental health and well-being. They can be around the planning system, the tree sector, you know, so it's a bit more broader, yeah, and also spreading that word.
Thanks, Zara. Naomi, you had your hand up there.
Yeah, I'll just chip in on that. I think they're both really valuable projects, and there's lots of different projects going on. They're not the only two. I'd say they're different tools that we can all use, and they're not mutually exclusive. The Tree Council sit on the board of partners, so the tree charter, although it's led by the Woodland Trust, is there's a board of partners, there's 12 organisations, and we all regularly meet and kind of help shape the direction together. The Tree Council are absolutely involved in that, and yeah, the networks that work together and are different tools can be used at different times.
Thanks, Naomi, that's great. Question 4, Caroline next. Have we lost Roger? Have we lost Roger again? Roger's gone off to get himself an agent, I think, after that performance, because everybody loved him, but that's okay. We will press on. Caroline, a question for you. 2 questions for you, actually. I'm going to do 2 at once. The first one is, you said that in Radford you were involved in planting 104 trees, and I was wondering this myself. Loretta's asked, why is it 104? Did we miss a particular link?
No, you didn't. It's just that the Woodland Trust tree packs come in a set amount, and 104 happens to be the number of trees that we thought we could plant in that area this year. So yeah, it's to do with how the Woodland Trust kind of arranged their tree sapling sets, or yeah. So yeah, nothing to do with me really. I knew that I wanted to try and plant 100, but yeah, the pack said 104.
That makes perfect sense. So a follow-up question that has been put to you, Caroline, but I think it's maybe even more relevant for Roger's presentation, but we can ask him another time maybe. But with all these trees going in the ground, is consideration being given towards maintenance as well? Because I know the Arb Association, we've been pushing a message really hard for a long time now. Planting is the easy bit. Planting is a 15-minute job. In arboriculture, we're looking after things that live for 100, 200, 300 years. And we've got to think about establishing trees, not just planting them. How's that being addressed in the projects that you're working on, Caroline?
Very much. This project, I did talk to a lot of experts, and I'm very aware that, you know, it's not as simple as just putting a tree sapling in the ground. And so I worked very closely with Nottingham City Council. We're lucky enough here in Nottingham to have a brilliant tree officer called Alex Begg, whose knowledge of trees is vast, fantastic. And we walked around the sites in the inner city area and carefully thought about where trees might go. And those trees will be maintained by Alex and his team at the Nottingham Council, and they will be maintained and looked after in years to come. So that's very much part of my kind of planning process. I'm not going to, you know, just park up next to a field and just plant some trees. I know it doesn't work like that, and I think, you know, it's important that communities are involved, but ultimately we do need help, and we need councils to be involved in overseeing the trees over the coming years.
That's really good to hear. Thank you. I was really glad, actually, Caroline, to hear you and Roger mention tree officers as well, because tree officers are just a critical part of the puzzle. You know, they're the custodians of urban trees. They do fantastic work. They're often very, very underappreciated. And anything like this, they've got to be involved in it all the way through, and whether it's species selection, location.
Talking to the tree officer, and we walked around the sites a couple of times, and it was just interesting looking at the trees that were in that area, and there were trees that were dying, and he you know, makes notes of those, and he was making notes all the time of jobs that needed to be done in that area. And this is in an inner city area where there's not many trees, but they are being watched and cared for, and it's really yeah, it's really good to know that that's going on in the even in these areas of the city where most people aren't aware that it's happening. So yeah, it's good.
That's great. Just a quick plug from me as well. There's an event called the National Tree Officers Conference, which the AA aren't involved in. So this isn't me trying to sell you something, but if you search online for the National Tree Officers Conference, it's being held online all throughout November, and it's a real showcase of some of the great work that tree officers are doing all over the country. So I heartily recommend that. On the maintenance theme, a question for Anna and Rachel. It's on the same kind of themes we've just been talking about. A question from Fee. Great work encouraging accessibility to nature and trees for children. As we've said, aftercare is absolutely key. How do you gain the same level of interest and encouragement in the aftercare as you do in the planting? Have you got any sort of tips or tricks for how to engage the youngsters in what happens afterwards, as well as just that day it goes in the ground?
Well, unfortunately, because of lockdown, we didn't get to do that this year. But yeah, we did have quite a lot of plans. So we were going to host other days where we got back, because one of our big things and what we've been really supported with the tree officer at the Sheffield City Council is not to use pesticides to spray the area where we're planting first. So because we don't want our small kids then digging in ground that's been, had pesticides sprayed on. So we were going to just keep mulching. So the idea was to go back and have events throughout the summer on the sites that we were looking after, where kids would keep going back and then able to kind of put the wood chip on around the trees and look after them. We did put a call out to ask people to go down if they were walking through the park on the daily exercise and actually water the trees. And some people did as well. And we've got one or two that are surviving. So yeah, within Kids Plant Trees, it very is much about you're planting a woodland and then you're looking after it and taking ownership of it, basically, which is why we understand that we need to get local people involved in the plantings. And what we're tending to find is that in some areas that's really, really easy, and in other areas it's harder. And that usually does come with kind of like, basically the deprived areas are a little bit more tricky to get people involved, whereas your more affluent areas, everyone's down there with the kids. So yeah, no, it definitely is really important. And it is also, that is actually where we're going to have the biggest stumbling block working within schools, and what we've already started to appreciate, that a lot of schools, it seems to be that they've got maintenance contracts for their grounds with external agencies. Not every school, but some. And if they're already tied into a contract, then it can be difficult to get the maintenance company to change what they're already doing. So i.e. they don't want to take on extra trees to look after. So then that means that we can't then plant within school grounds. So we have to look for ways of getting around that, basically. Even though that planting trees is actually probably going to be less maintenance because it means they've got less area to mow. But yeah, so it is everything. It is what we're taking into consideration. We haven't got over the issue around schools and contracts yet. Come back to us.
Thanks, Rachel. Anna, have you got anything to add?
No, I think Rachel covered it there. It was really heartening in lockdown to get little picture updates on social of the trees that they'd planted. So when they were going out on their daily exercise, they would take a shot and share it on social and share it with us. And it was just lovely to see that they were obviously invested in it like we were, even though we couldn't fully access them like we wanted to. And fingers crossed we'll be able to access them more in the future.
Great. I don't normally do this, but I'm just going to do another little plug quickly, because I think it's potentially quite useful, or not if you can't see it. Hang on a minute. So this year, because we had a bit of a drought and people couldn't necessarily go out and maintain trees, and we were worried about trees dying through a lack of water, the Arboricultural Association, the London Tree Officers Association, the Association of Tree Officers, and the Municipal Tree Officers Association, so lots of tree officers there, produced some watering materials. So we've got these watering tags. They're free to access online. You can print them out, you can laminate them, you can put them on your tree. There's posters and a sort of education and awareness campaign. So if anyone wants that sort of information, not so much now, it was hailing today in Gloucestershire, but next year, remember they're there. There's those sort of resources are available to encourage the community to get out there and water trees as well. Okay. And other people do them too, obviously, but I'm just saying use ours because I've got a captive audience. Right. Now I've lost myself. Here we are. Okay, let's have a bit of a challenging question. I'm going to fire this over at you, Zara. It's all been too nice and huggy and lovey-dovey so far. So there's a couple of big words that often get bandied around. One is Sheffield and one is HS2. And we're not going to get into either issue, to be perfectly honest, because we don't have the time. But Naomi has asked about Sheffield and Madeline has asked about HS2. And what they're really asking is, the tree charter sounds fantastic, but is it really working if these kind of things can still happen? Is that unfair? How could the tree charter have prevented these things?
That is a big question. I would say it's not necessarily that the tree charter alone is going to prevent these things, but in getting more and more people involved in woods and trees and getting more support for woods and trees, there's going to be a bigger impact when those people say, actually, no, what you're doing is not okay. And we're going to stand up and fight for woods and trees. It has a louder voice. I'd start there. I think there's a million things you could say with that, really. Naomi, would you like to add anything about HS2? This is Naomi's area.
Well, I was actually going to come in on Sheffield and the tree charter groups there who, and many of them actually didn't, they started off as activist groups and people protecting the trees when that awful situation happened. And I would say they were successful. They put a stop to that activity and they didn't let it happen. And it took a little while and there were trees lost and it was heartbreaking to witness. But it was stopped and now Sheffield is in an amazing place where they've got a tree strategy for the city that is having a year-long consultation with local people. And there are tree charter branches, so lots of those groups then became tree charter branches. And those groups and the local people to Sheffield have really turned that around for the city, and it's getting there. It's there, and it didn't happen on day one, but those groups and the charter branches, but just people in Sheffield who realised and loved their trees and stood up for them, did have a massive impact. And HS2 is also heartbreaking. Seeing the Covington pear last week being felled was kind of really difficult to watch, and the campaigns team at Woodland Trust have been campaigning against the destruction that HS2 is causing to ancient woods and trees for years, and we've not succeeded in stopping all the destruction. There have been some small wins which are hard to remember when you see such awful loss of really beautiful and important trees, but we will keep on fighting. It's not over yet.
I'd also like to just add to that quickly that a lot of councils have actually signed up to support the tree charter as well. And so in terms of what you were saying about prevention, when you have a local council, when you have like city and district councils who have signed up to support the tree charter, and they'll often do a little ceremony so that it's publicly announced and that, you know, the people of that city know that their council supports the tree charter principles. If that council then turns around and sort of says, you know, we're planning on doing such and such, that gives us some kind of accountability. And also when they do sign up to the tree charter, we'll point them towards our emergency tree plan, which is a tool that councils can use in forming policies and tree strategies to hopefully prevent all of these things that we've seen in Sheffield.
Well, I would say the circumstances around Sheffield were quite specific, weren't they? And whilst we've always got to be alert that it could happen somewhere else, there's often a bit of a misconception, I think, that bad council cutting down trees, this is happening everywhere, whereas it was a little bit more nuanced than that. It was a very, very bad situation, but it was a relatively specific set of circumstances that wasn't just about bad council, I think it's fair to say. But I'm not going to get drawn into that argument. Question for Caroline, another question from Naomi, because Naomi asked so many good questions. Caroline, have you thought about incorporating the extraordinary Celtic mythological heritage into your artistic thought process?
I wonder what specifically. It's something that I haven't really looked in detail at, but I'm very, very happy to find out more. At the moment, the project's in its very early stages, and I am kind of drawing things gradually from different kind of, I don't know, traditions, folklores, gatherings. I mean, I've been quite interested in the Tolpuddle Martyrs story, and I'm interested obviously in the Robin Hood story and the story of the first Bramley apple. But yeah, I'm always up for, I'm still gathering information, and if the person who asked the question can give me some information, I'd be very happy to learn more.
Absolutely, I'm sure there'll be plenty of people happy to chat about that side of things. Very, very interesting. We've got a question that I think was aimed at the time at Rachel and Anna, but there's also a question, I'll give you a heads up, Anna, there's a question for Mabel here. So first of all, a question for Rachel and Anna, which is, when you're planting all these trees with the children, how is that land, sorry, it's a question from Karen, how's that land being sourced? Is it all council land, or is there any private land being volunteered for that purpose too?
So I'll answer. We have a lot of it is predominantly council land. We have been connecting with lots of schools, so we had some school land lined up, and we put kind of a message out about having lots of free trees and needing lots of land, and we got quite a lot of private homes saying that they'd got space in their gardens, so we organised a collection and a delivery set up when we had extra trees that needed going in the ground. And yeah, our future aims is to get more schools on board, and if the school hasn't necessarily got land to plant in, we'd like to do the planters in the school, but we'd like local businesses to perhaps have got space to then for the kids to plant there. So yeah, a lot of council land, but we're doing everything we can to find other land wherever we can find it.
Brilliant. Rachel, did you have anything on that? Or?
No, I don't think so. I think I mean, a couple of things that we did have a farm actually that got in touch, and they offered up, said they had some land that they wanted us to plant trees on, which we did go and assess. And it was one of those things where I was just going up to this farm with someone to go and kind of assess the sites, and there were these like gorgeous massive green fields, and I was all like, yes, we're going to get a green field. And it wasn't, it was a bit of like a boggy waste ground where they were like, well, we don't use this for anything, so would you like to plant there? So it wasn't quite the dream that I'd hoped for, but I mean, but then we did get another really positive one with a private nursery, which was actually a nature nursery on a farm, which Anna did mention, and the farm actually did donate a field, and so they are gradually going to be using that field to create a woodland and also a forest garden. So yeah, that's the only one that we've actually managed to kind of secure as yet.
Definitely.
We'll persevere.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to get, once you've got a sort of case study like that, it can all sort of snowball from there, can't it? So brilliant.
And I'm afraid Maples should be doing bedtime, so she has retired for the evening.
Well, I'll ask you a question on Mabel's behalf. You may know the answer, because the most important question of the evening, question from Dave. Mabel, what is your favourite type of tree?
Oh, anything she can climb. I mean, she's come along to all the planting events, and she, you know, her alone, she's got 30, 40, maybe at least 30 in the ground in the last planting events. So she's been really enthusiastic about it. And if you get her started on orangutans and the rainforest, then yeah, that's a whole other webinar.
So Mabel's favourite species of tree is orangutan.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That makes perfect sense to me. Brilliant, thank you. Okay, there's all sorts of stuff lying around, and this is great. Let's go for another difficult question for Zara and Naomi. Everyone likes the difficult questions, don't they? I'm going to try and summarise in as nice a possible way. There's a few people who've mentioned this, but basically, in a lot of the photos that we've seen, not all of them, particularly in the latter presentations, but it's quite white heavy. There's very little ethnic representation in some of the photos. And I know that the Arb Association, we struggle with this. This isn't me sort of saying, why aren't you doing more? It's a really challenging thing, isn't it? I think for our industry, diversity in all its forms. I think we're getting there with gender, I like to think. But ethnicity, we're not there yet. What's happening with the Tree Charter, with the Woodland Trust? What are you trying to do to put this right?
Okay, so I'm really glad that that's been picked up, because the environmental sector is actually the second worst sector for diversity in the UK, and it is something that we're trying to work on. One of the Tree Charter principles is to make trees accessible to all, and that doesn't just mean, you know, your distance from trees, or, you know, your disparity in income, and therefore if you're in an urban area, you have a lack of access to trees. It's also talking about that cultural element in terms of accessibility to woods and trees. And so we Naomi mentioned that we have a board of partners. One of these partners is called the Black Environment Network, and their sort of role is to try and create more diversity within the environmental sector and environmental organisations. So we are working with them to see how we can use the Tree Charter in a way to make woods and trees more accessible. And I think it does come down to that wider inequality of income disparity that needs to be tackled. And it will take time. But I think that when you have these community groups getting involved, and like you say, there's almost there's such a lack of diversity within it. I want to say it's about, you know, spreading that message to new audiences, but I know that alone isn't actually going to be enough. So for example, Tree Charter Day, one of the 5 talks that we'll be doing throughout the day will be about the cultural meaning behind trees. And I don't know if you picked it up in Roger's presentation, but one of the things that Roger does is every year he has an interfaith planting event where different faiths across the community come together and talk about how their culture is using trees. And so it's not just about, you know, planting more woodland, it's about highlighting the meaning of trees for different cultures and using trees in that way and talking about trees in that way. And at the moment, you know, we talk a lot about climate change and the biodiversity crisis around trees, but actually trees have a far more powerful impact culturally as well. And that's very different across different cultures, and that needs to be talked about more. So I don't want to ramble about too much, but I think it takes time, and we are doing things, and we can see charter branches are doing things to try and get there.
Thanks, Zara. I don't know, Naomi or any of our other panelists, have you got anything to add at all?
I don't think I could have put that better myself personally.
Caroline, I think you're about to say something, and just sort of drawing onto a question to you perhaps. How do you find that you can engage sort of beyond just the you know, the white or wealthier communities, however it's going to be put in your artwork? How do you make that
well, I guess that it was an important part of our decision to choose the Radford area of Nottingham to for this first kind of planting exercise. It is a really multicultural environment, and that was very much part of the reason why we're starting in the city, in the inner city, in this area where there is diversity. Unfortunately, though, I mean, the idea originally was to obviously involve people from the community, and we had planned to go into the schools there, and we planned to invite people through community groups to come and be involved in the project. Now that can't happen because of COVID, but we will still be disseminating, you know, we will still be spreading the word, and hopefully it will, you know, just pass us by, and people in that community will come and talk to us, will be involved in a small way perhaps in this first planting session. But yeah, that's very much part of my kind of thinking when it comes to looking at locations in which to run the project.
Thanks, Caroline. It's a huge issue, is the short answer, and I don't think anyone's got the solution to it. But I guess I can try and assure people watching that as an industry, we are aware of it, and we haven't solved it yet, but we're aware there's a problem, and we are trying to address it. And if you think you have the solution, then please feel free to email me, john@trees.org.uk, and we can have a talk about it, because it's something we very much want to address. One thing I am going to shoehorn into this, and I have to do it just because all my Woodland Trust friends are here, but we don't just need diversity in people, we also need diversity in tree species. And whilst native trees are marvellous and wonderful and we all love them, restricting yourself to planting just native trees in urban areas is insanity, and it is not good for anything ever. We need diversity in our tree planting, in our species, whether it's because of the fear of pests and diseases, whether it's because of climate change, whether it's just to bring all of the different benefits we want to bring from trees. And whilst there's absolutely a place for native trees, I'm not anti-native trees. We have to diversify in urban areas. Lots and lots of different trees from all over the place, responsibly sourced, responsibly quarantined, UK grown if possible, but not just native. So please, everybody, if you just take one thing away, if you only listen to me once in your lives, don't just restrict yourself to native planting. Here endeth the lesson. I can move on quickly before anyone shouts at me. Okay, Anna and Rachel, but we haven't got Rachel, have we? No, Rachel's gone. Okay. Question from Elizabeth. How did the community react to the vandalism at your site?
Well, it happened soon after the planting event, and we worked really closely with Sheffield City Council, an amazing forestry officer there, Catherine Nutgans. I'm not sure how you pronounce her surname, sorry, but Catherine, and she, I mean, they were still going back and forth to that site. We haven't had chance to address that yet. We would like to do an education project in that area, because that particular spot, Manor, playing fields, is such a massive site. They had primary schools down there planting, and a lot of their trees also got pulled up. So it's ultimately we're trying to contact the schools in that area, and the council are trying to get involved, in community groups involved. You know, touching on the diversity point, we had a really large scout group from that area come along, and so it'll be reconnecting with them and getting them back, hopefully in the future, for more days there where we're doing more planting, you know, spreading the mulch like Rachel had explained, and just anything where we can get them there and hands-on and talking to them, and hopefully that will then spread to their wider families, communities, and yeah, it's a tricky one. And again, if anybody has any suggestions, then we would be open to those suggestions.
Thanks, Anna. I mean, again, vandalism is a really tricky one, and I think many people seem, by engaging the community and making this something grassroots that's bottom up rather than something that's done to people, often seems to be a sort of good solution. You're obviously working on that. We haven't got very much longer left, really. We've gone longer than we were supposed to go on, actually, but we're all having such fun. That's okay. But as always, we're not going to be able to get through all the questions. We always make all of the questions and all of the chat available to all of our panelists. So everyone who's been speaking tonight will have the opportunity to have a look, and if they want to get in touch, then they can. If you want to ask any specific questions, then please drop me an email, john@trees.org.uk, and I will do my best to get you an answer from one of our experts. So I want to finish, I think, with a question, a general question for all of you. So I'll go round you all, and you can answer the question, and then you can say any closing points you might have. It's a question from Eduardo, and I think it's a really important one. Do panelists feel that in general discourse, there is too much emphasis on planting new trees and too little on retaining mature ones? And Eduardo's got a lovely little phrase here. It says, a mature tree is an asset today. A new tree is only a promise, often unfulfilled. I'm stealing that, Eduardo. I love it. Let's start with Zara. Are we thinking too much about planting and not enough about retention?
I think that both are equally important. You know, when you think about things like we were mentioning earlier about HS2 and the loss of trees in the UK at the moment, it is important that we have tree replacement strategies. but wouldn't it be wonderful if we could protect all of those trees in the first place? But as we've seen with things like HS2, it's not always possible. And so that's when questions come in about, okay, so we've lost all these trees. How can we replenish these areas? How can we, bring wildlife back to these areas? And that can often be, we need to start planting now so we can think ahead for the future. But I agree that, protection is just as important. And there are areas of woodland, like ancient woodland, which is irreplaceable. So that, in that case, and in that instance, that is priority always. You can't just plant, a small tree and expect it to have the same kind of value as an ancient woodland. So yeah, definitely both need to be considered.
Thanks, Zara. Naomi.
Yeah, I'd agree with Zara that the priority should be protection. That's like first protect and then create after that, and or restore in between. Protection, we've got 2.8%. So that's in England. It's 2.8% of England is ancient woodland, so tiny. Don't quote me on that stat. But so that's, we can't afford to lose any ancient woodland, and that is, we absolutely work to stop any loss. We don't believe in absolutely no more loss of ancient woodland. That should be the priority, and we've got campaigns live at the moment in terms of from that perspective. The other side of the coin is that we are massively underwooded. We have very little trees compared to the rest of Europe. From a climate change perspective, the Committee on Climate Change, they recommend, and the target we should be aiming for is at least 30,000 hectares of new woodland across the UK every year between now and 2025. So we do need a focus on getting more trees in the ground as well, through both planting and natural regeneration. We do need both, because natural regeneration needs to be part of that battle as well. But that's a massive amount of increase in new trees. So we do need both, is bottom line.
I think one of the, sorry, we'll go on to everyone else in a second, but one of the issues with when we have these targets, 10 million trees, 20 million trees, 1 billion trees, or the acreage, from an arboricultural point of view, as people, that looking after the urban trees, it's very easy for the numbers, things like street trees, to be completely lost in those figures. What we're really talking about there is almost plantations. It's nearer forestry a lot of the time than anything else. And it's very easy to lose the importance of urban trees, where most people actually live and work. They can be lost in those figures when you're talking about hundreds of millions of trees going in. So I think it's very important for everyone watching. Again, it's another plea, sorry, but there's a big difference between arboriculture, forestry, and then sort of woodland and woodland management. And each of them we work very close together. There's lots of overlaps, but they are quite distinct disciplines a lot of the time. So think of the urban.
I totally agree with you, absolutely. And those numbers are easy to quote in one number that has a lot of impact because they're massive. But the new trees that we need to be solving lots of problems. So there's climate change, there's biodiversity loss, there's health and well-being, and all of the ways that we create new trees and new woods needs to be from everything from large scale woods and forests and landscape scale right down to trees in gardens and trees on streets, and we do need both of them, and you're absolutely right to pick up on that.
No, brilliant. Thanks, Naomi. So, Caroline, same sort of question, really. Do we think too much about planting trees when we should be thinking about protecting what we've got?
I guess I need to answer that from my perspective my perspective as an artist, and also the projects I'm involved in. So there's a few different levels really to my work in connection with trees, and one of those is working with the significant trees that I talked about. Well, all trees are significant, but working with the ancient trees, so the major oak and Newton's apple tree and the first Bramley apple tree. So I am kind of honouring those trees that need protecting, and kind of sharing information and getting people talking about those important trees. But also, I think it's important to plant new trees, and I think it was Anna who mentioned the joy of planting a tree. And I remember my dad was on the committee down in Somerset when I was about 10, and I planted some trees back then, and I still go back to my homeland and see those magnificent trees. And for me, that is still a joy now, 40 years later. And I think that is really important. So planting the new trees, bringing in a new generation, talking about the importance of that and giving them something to kind of remember and grow up with is an important legacy to share. But yeah, at the same time, through my work, I do look at the ancient trees and what they stand for.
Thank you, Caroline. Roger, we lost you. We've got you back. It's lovely to see you again.
Thanks for that. Perhaps that's a good example why we need 5G and not HS2, because the broadband signal in this country is horrendous.
Don't you bring up HS2 as well? Everybody else is bringing up HS2. Roger, we've had some questions in for you, which I'll probably email you separately if you don't mind now, because we're just sort of pulling to a close. But I guess as final thoughts and points, the question that Eduardo put to us was, there seems to be a lot of emphasis on just tree planting, and we're not always perhaps thinking about protecting what we've got. Obviously, your work focuses on the planting side, but how much do you get involved with protection? How much do you find you can inspire the youngsters to care about what's there rather than what could be there?
Well, there's so much going on here. What we've been connected with are things like when certain areas of trees come under threat, and we've had 2 instances of that in the last couple of years, where some really mature, beautiful trees, somebody decided, oh, we're going to take those trees out to improve the view, but they weren't considering what benefits those trees were bringing to reducing flooding in that particular area. So as a lobby group, we were able to put that point of view and speak on behalf of the trees and say, look, these trees are providing a valuable service. They were sort of bordering on a main road as well, which provided a lovely view as you drive on this main road. So those trees weren't cut down, thank goodness. But there's also, green spaces where we've naturalized areas and things like that, trying to protect those. So as a group, we are able to engage in that. And the great thing about this networking that we've got locally with our local council, it gives us a voice, and vice versa. If the council need to express something to the local community, it's that connection that they'll admit that they've not been very good at communicating some things over the years, where they've done something and perhaps not explained it properly. It works both ways. So we can give our view, and people come to us when they've got concerns about certain trees and certain issues. Why is this being done? And we can help to communicate that message, whatever it is.
Thank you very much, Roger. And finally then, same question to Anna and Rachel.
I can understand and see the importance of protection, but as a group we set up to do something for the little ones, and back to my point is, for them, planting a seed, like Caroline had mentioned, getting their hands dirty, and hopefully it will plant the seed in their little brains as to the importance of that tree and the importance of it in their future. So that's as a group, that's where we're focusing, and that's exactly why we're doing it, and it's about the little ones and their future.
Thanks, Anna. I'm not sure, we got Rachel there somewhere.
She'll have headed off for bedtime, I think.
Quite right too. It's past all of our bedtimes and we should all get home. Right, well, thank you for that. We just want to finish up very quickly. Zara, I just ask you, I think, we've a lot of people feeling very inspired this evening. How can our audience get involved with the Tree Charter?
So if you, there's 2 ways. You can send an email to charter@woodlandtrust.org.uk, and I can write that down in the chat as well. Or you can visit the Tree Charter website, and there's a page called Get Involved. And if you scroll down, you'll find the map with all the different charter branches on it if you wanted to join a charter branch or work with a charter branch in your area. Or there's also a page where you can sign up to become a charter branch, and that will send an email to charter@woodlandtrust.org.uk again.
Easy as that. So there's no excuse for you all out there not to get involved. Well, thank you all of you very much. First of all, thank you to our panelists. Thank you, Zara, Naomi, Caroline, Roger, Anna, Rachel, and of course, Mabel. We want to find out what Mabel's favourite tree is, but we'll have to follow that up post bedtime. People sleep post bedtime, post waking up time. Anyway, thank you to all of our panelists. Really amazing work, genuinely inspirational. It's been great. And thank you to all of our audience, as ever, for your wonderful and sometimes slightly tricky questions, but I think we got there. As I say, please drop me an email, john@trees.org.uk. If I didn't ask your question, I'm sorry, but we can, of course, always follow it up. So check out our website as well, trees.org.uk, for the upcoming webinars. I don't think we're doing one next week, but the week after we will be, and then we'll be running through till the end of January. So there's loads of stuff coming up, including one about the major oak, which was mentioned a couple of times by Caroline. So a presentation all about the major oak. So that is it. Stay safe. Thank you all very much. Look after yourselves, and we will see you very soon indeed. Thank you all. Good night.